What would you do if you found 8 glowing, mysterious eggs in a forgotten mountain cave? When I just brought them at home, my house turned into beautiful chaos. But the dream turned into a nightmare when a massive apex predator Garchomp violently shattered my floor to destroy them. And what happened next when those 8 tiny Pokémon transformed into towering, godlike beasts of nature to protect me is a story you have to see to believe. They say secrets always wait for those who seek them. I spent weeks deep within the dark, abandoned caves of the mountains, places untouched by human hands for centuries. My heavy, dirt-stained black work clothes were completely ruined. I was exhausted, ready to give up. But then, I found my reward. 8 eggs, 8 different mysteries, and total silence. When I finally got back home, the sound of my heavy boots echoed across the crystal-clear epoxy floor. I remember staring down at the red, ancient artifacts embedded beneath my feet, trying to process what I had just found. I set the eggs on the table. I waited and waited. Nothing happened until a stupid, simple accident changed my life. One of the glowing eggs slipped right out of my hands. It plunged straight into a deep basin of water. Panic hit me. I rushed to pull it out, but then a blinding oceanic blue light pierced through the water. I stepped back. The egg cracked open, and from the calm ripples of the water, a tiny Vaporeon gracefully swam to the surface. It looked like it was made of the water itself. It shook the droplets from its head, looked up at me with gentle dark eyes, and gave me a joyful, bubbling smile. I couldn't believe it. Then it hit me. It was all about the environment. Rolling up the dusty sleeves of my black work shirt, I grabbed the second frost-covered egg and shoved it deep inside the freezing core of my refrigerator. When I finally opened the door, a thick, freezing mist poured out into the room. As the mist cleared, there sat a tiny Glaceon. It wasn't shivering. It took a deep breath of the icy air, completely in its element. I watched in awe as it stepped out. With every tiny step Glaceon took on my epoxy floor, delicate glowing frost patterns bloomed beneath its paws. Right then, I had 2 miracles sitting in my room, but I had no idea. I had cracked the code. Every egg had its own heartbeat, its own world waiting to be triggered. I grabbed the 3rd egg, a vibrant crimson shell. Wiping my soot-stained hands on my black work trousers, I placed it carefully near the roaring fireplace. The egg seemed to absorb the heat, glowing like a hot coal. Then a burst of embers, and from the ashes tumbled a fluffy, chubby little Flareon. It didn't roar, it simply purred, let out a tiny puff of smoke, and immediately curled up on the rug to sleep by the fire. Warmth was its true nature. Next was electricity. I dragged an old car battery from the garage, held the copper wires tightly under the dark sleeves of my work shirt, and struck a spark. The room flashed with blinding light. The egg shattered with a sharp crack, revealing a hyperactive, spiky-haired Jolteon. It couldn't stand still for a single second. It bolted across the room like a lightning strike, and immediately sank its teeth into my thick TV cables. I quickly realized it didn't need food. It craved pure energy. But the 5th egg was completely silent. No heat, no shock could wake it. Exhausted, I just laid it to rest in a large potted plant near the window. When morning came, the first rays of the sun and the damp earth had worked their silent magic. Beneath the green leaves, a tiny Leafeon opened its eyes, taking a deep breath of the fresh morning air. It was perfectly camouflaged. But my most elegant discovery was still waiting. The 6th egg hummed with a strange, radiant energy. Realizing it needed pure light, I carried it upstairs. High above the ground, I watched the egg swallow the sunlight, glowing brighter and brighter, until it fractured like a precious gemstone. From the blinding light emerged Espeon, calm, graceful, and deeply mysterious. The gem on its forehead sparkled as it stared at me with an intense, knowing gaze. It felt like it could read my mind. By afternoon, my house was a complete disaster zone, a beautiful, chaotic, boiling pot of elements. Jolteon was short-circuiting the lamps. Vaporeon had turned my luxury bathroom into its personal swimming pool. Flareon was happily snoring on a scorched corner of the carpet. And Espeon sat quietly, using telekinesis to casually float my coffee mugs above the red-patterned epoxy floor. I was still covered in mountain dust, my black work clothes stained with wet patches and scorch marks. I ran around trying to clean up this adorable mess. I was dead tired, but I couldn't stop smiling. This chaos had brought my home to life. Yet, 2 eggs remained on the table. The secrets of darkness and pure affection were still completely untouched. While the others were tearing up the living room, the 7th egg lay there, completely stubborn. It rejected the warmth of the fire. It rejected the brilliance of the sun on the terrace. Whenever light touched its shell, it seemed to fade away. I finally understood. I carried it into the darkest room of the house. No lamps, no electricity, just the silent silver beam of moonlight piercing through the window glass, hitting the center of the floor. I placed the egg directly in the moonlight. Instantly, the shell turned pitch black, absorbing the shadows around it. With a soft, almost completely silent crack, Umbreon opened its eyes. It didn't make a sound. It simply stood up, its sleek, dark fur blending into the night, while the bright yellow rings on its body began to pulse with a mysterious, rhythmic glow. It felt like the guardian of the dark, so calm and deeply loyal. Only 1 egg remained, the 8th, my final mystery. But this one was impossible. I tried the water, I tried the cold, the dark, the light, the soil, nothing. Not a single element could wake the life inside. Exhausted, defeated, and completely drained, I sat heavily on the floor. I looked at the silent egg, holding it close to my chest to share my own warm body heat. I softly wrapped the egg in a delicate, warm pink cloth. I closed my eyes, holding it with pure, unconditional love. And that was the final key. Not an element of nature, but an element of the heart. The shell dissolved into a gentle light, and right from the warmth of my hands emerged Sylveon. Its big, bright blue eyes looked up at me with instant adoration. It unfurled its ribbon-like feelers, gently wrapping them around my dust-covered arm. My family was complete. 8 completely different souls, all living under my roof. But I had no idea that my peaceful happiness was about to be shattered, because outside, the sky was already turning an unnatural, terrifying shade of crimson. They say peace is always the most fragile thing in the world. I learned that the hard way. A deafening roar shook the foundation of my house. My beautiful red-patterned epoxy floor violently erupted. Shards of crystal and ancient artifacts flew into the air as a massive, terrifying shadow burst from beneath the earth right into my living room. It was Garchomp. It came to destroy. Its cold reptilian eyes locked straight onto my 8 tiny, helpless elemental babies. The beast swung its razor-sharp fin with merciless speed. It was aiming directly for tiny Umbreon and Sylveon. "No!" I screamed. Without a second thought, I threw my body right into the chaos. I collapsed onto the rubble, coughing up dust, bleeding, but I refused to let them get hurt, not in my house. Through my half-closed eyes, I saw my 8 tiny babies looking at me. Tears of pure fear welled up in their eyes, but as the monster prepared for its final fatal strike, that fear shattered. I felt the temperature in the room change. Their fear turned into pure, uncontrollable wrath. The air pressure instantly dropped. A massive shockwave of elemental energy exploded from all 8 of their tiny bodies. Blinding light consumed the room as they rapidly grew. Jolteon's fur crackled with 1,000,000 volts of lightning. Flareon roared, turning the air into a blazing inferno. Vaporeon summoned a crushing tidal wave out of nowhere. Glaceon froze the falling debris into deadly ice spears. Leafeon called forth thick, steel-crushing vines. Espeon's eyes glowed with godlike psychic power, locking the giant monster completely in place. And from the shadows, Umbreon unleashed a devastating pulse of dark energy, blinding the predator. Sylveon, its eyes glowing with fierce, protective love, fired a massive, blinding beam of fierce fairy light. 8 elements, 1 family, 1 devastating strike. Fire, ice, water, lightning, nature, mind, darkness, and love fused into a single blinding beam of absolute destruction. The blast hit the predator with the force of a meteorite, launching Garchomp straight through my roof, blasting it far away into the distant mountains, never to return. The smoke slowly cleared. I slowly opened my eyes, looking up at the 8 magnificent, majestic creatures surrounding me. They gently nudged my wounded hands, their eyes full of deep, fierce affection. My journey had started in a dark, cold cave, but it ended right here. They were no longer just my pets. They were my absolute protectors, my true family.